What's going on, everybody? Alongside TJ Calkins, Jay Sannon here with ATS, getting you ready for UFC 269. TJ, a very exciting card here, of course, headlined by a couple of title fights. We'll get to those in just a little bit. But first, let's start out with Randy Costa taking on Tony Kelly. Costa minus 185 favorite. Fireworks expected in this fight, TJ. Minus 250 to end inside the distance. What do you see happening in this bout?
Costa himself is fireworks. I mean, it's just the way he approaches his fights. He accepts that he's going to go out there and he's going to do any and every last thing he can to get a first round knockout. And if he doesn't get it, the gas tank's empty, and then he gets finished himself. We've seen it in every UFC fight so far. I think he put out a very impressive first round against Adrian Yanez. You know, he won that round. He freaking put it on him. But, you know, he just didn't have anything left in the second round, and Yanez very, very good. So he got knocked out there. But now the level of competition dropped. You know, Tony Kelly isn't dangerous like Yanez is. So I think we're going to see Costa really put it on him and get the job done this time. That's the main thing. But essentially every Randy Costa fight's going to be the same. First round knockout for him or second, third, probably second round finish for his opponent. But with the ITD line sitting at minus 110, I think we're much more likely to see Costa get that first round knockout that he's looking for.
TJ, next up, we have Miranda Maverick taking on Erin Blanchard. Maverick, a minus 140 favorite in this fight, but I believe that you have the dog here. Am I correct?
Yeah, I do have the dog. And I do understand why Maverick is favored. She's the more polished fighter. She's a better striker at this point in her career. You know, Blanchfield's only 22, but she's got a very bright future. And, man, her grappling game is absolutely legit. She's extremely heavy on top. And the hole that we've seen in Maverick's game when she's fought competent fighters is she gets taken down. I believe she's been taken down 5 times in her last 2 fights. And while Blanchfield is certainly not a pure wrestler at this point in her career, she has her ways to get the fight down. She'll clinch up, she'll shoot. And, I mean, the shots aren't the greatest you'll see, but it only takes 1 per round. And Blanchfield, I don't know if she's going to find a finish on the floor, but she's still heavy on top. I think rounds will end there or at least be on the floor long enough that she will score 2 out of the 3 rounds. So plus 120, I think, is a really nice value. And we'll go ahead and take Blanchfield here.
TJ, next up, I want to get your thoughts on Bruno Silva and Jordan Wright. Silva, a pretty convincing favorite here at minus 360. Do you think that he lives up to that billing here in this matchup?
Yeah, I do. And I think the super telling thing about this fight is the minus 360 favorite is minus 200 to win inside the distance. And even then, that might be short. You know, Jordan Wright, we've seen every single one of his fights in the UFC banner end in 5 minutes, 18 seconds or fewer. He's won 2 of those against guys that probably shouldn't be on the roster. Jamie Pickett, Ike Villanueva, you know, they're not very good. But then when he fights guys that have a secure spot on the roster and they're truly UFC caliber guys, then he's the one that gets starched, you know. And now I think we're going to see the latter in this fight with Bruno Silva. You know, he's only had 2 fights in the UFC, but he's won via KO both times. And Wright is a guy that just, I don't want to be disrespectful, but he doesn't like to get hit. For this level of MMA, he doesn't like to take damage. He doesn't do it well. And I think he's going to wilt. I think Silva wins, and I think he does it quickly. So I'm willing to lay that minus 200 ITD and really have no qualms in doing so.
TJ, next up, it's the Shoey God, Tuivasa, taking on Augusto Sakai, and it's a pick'em fight, so I want to know what you think about it.
So how do you not love Tuivasa, honestly? You know, everybody knows the Shoeys. It's wonderful. And at media day, and I'm going to try and say this in the Tuivasa Australian accent, the way he said it, he gets asked, how often do you do Shoeys? And he's... And, you know, he's always very calm, and he just says, how often does a priest go to church? He just absolutely cracked me up. It was so classic. But he's entering another fantastic fight for himself. He's on a 3-fight win streak, 3-fight knockout streak. And Tuivasa fights have gone one of 2 ways in the UFC. He's either won by quick knockout or he ran into a grappler and was beaten on the floor. Well, Sakai's not a grappler. In his entire UFC career, he's completed one of two takedowns. And if I recall correctly, that was in the third round of the Chase Sherman fight after he basically beat Chase Sherman senseless. Uh, and Sakai isn't a guy that brings a lot of power. So I think Tuivasa is going to come in. I mean, he throws caution to the wind anyway. He's not really a guy that plays it safe. He comes in, you can count on him to come in and try and wreck the lead leg and throw bombs, and he's going to do that once again. I think the leg of Sakai is compromised in the first minute or two of the fight. But I don't think it gets out of the first round. The thing with Tuivasa is he's minus 110, but the ITD line is only plus 120. I just don't see any sense whatsoever in going that route. So we'll just take Tuivasa flat at the pick of minus 110.
You nailed the Australian accent, by the way. I just want to put that out there, TJ.
Thanks.
TJ, next up, Pedro Munhoz taking on Dominick Cruz. Another pick'em fight here. What do you think?
Oh, more leg kicks. We talked about Tai Tuivasa and how he's just willing to come in there and bang the leg. And I mean, Munhoz is probably the best. Well, you got guys like Aldo. When he throws the leg kicks, he surprised us last week. He actually went back to the leg kicks and won the fight. We're going to see Munhoz do that again. And Cruz is a guy that he's heavy on that front leg. And, he's only had 2 fights since 2017. Back in 2017, the calf kick wasn't a thing. He didn't have to worry about it. So now in both of those fights, since he's come back, his leg's been kicked 23 times in both fights. And now you got Munhoz, this guy kicking him. That's a big freaking problem. You eat 23 of those, you ain't going to be walking. So I think that's going to be a huge thing. And, Munhoz is really durable. Cruz isn't like a one-shot kill power kind of guy. So Munhoz will be happy to eat some punches as long as it wins the war to lose the battle, So he's gonna be on that leg. The other thing is Munhoz, in my opinion, has the best guillotine in MMA. And the last time Dominick Cruz won a fight without completing a takedown, 2008. So Cruz is going to have to be very careful whether he chooses to wrestle or is forced to wrestle because of a compromised leg. Putting his neck in Munhoz's hands is really, really rolling the dice. In any event, I think Munhoz runs away with this fight late after his compromised leg. I don't think Cruz is going to want to wrestle. He would be smart not to, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, I think Munhoz gets it done even if he drops round 1.
TJ, next up on the UFC 269 card, Josh Emmett taking on Dan Ige. Emmett, a minus 170 favorite, the fight plus 120 to end inside the distance. What say you?
I'm actually pretty shocked at all of the ITD lines. I think they're way too high on the plus side. There is no such thing as a featherweight on the planet with heavier hands than Josh Emmett. I mean, he throws absolute bombs and fire, and he'll remove people from consciousness. And Ige is a guy that can get hit, and Ige is absolutely a guy who has been exposed as he won fights and got to an elevated level of competition. He technically has a win over Edson Barboza, but that was one of the biggest judging travesties we'll ever see. I mean, that was an absolute joke. And then he elevated again against Cater, loses decisively, back down, beats Gavin Tucker, and then he fights Korean Zombie and loses decisively. So this is another one. I think this is the most difficult match he's had, period. And he's never felt power like he's going to feel, and I think Emmett puts him out. And that ITD line sitting at plus 240 is something I'm absolutely ready to attack.
Now, TJ, I want to get your thoughts on the 2 title fights on the UFC 269 card. Of course, you have Amanda Nunes, a heavy favorite. What else is new? Taking on Juliana Pena. And then, of course, you have the main event between Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier. What do you think about these 2 matchups?
Oh, Amanda Nunes, we all know how perfect, great she is. But this is truly an unworthy title challenger, Juliana Pena. I mean, this is a girl that has been submitted twice in her last 2 fights, in her last 4 fights, by strikers, not grapplers. Jermaine Durandamy and Valentina submitted her. And Pena's out here talking about how her ground game, her grappling game is going to beat Amanda. As if she's not a black belt, let her on the floor. I mean, the striking is going to be a runaway for Nunes. We know that. But Pena, I think she's trying to convince herself more than anyone that she has some sort of path to victory. It's absolutely a joke. If you have to play the fight, what is it, minus 300 on Nunes ITD? I think that's the way to go. But I'll probably be sitting it out.
And what do you think about Oliveira and Poirier to close it out?
Well, don't miss it. Don't miss the fight. That's absolutely. I mean, this is must watch TV as much as we will see. I have a really hard time picking this fight. I mean, I could, if I ignored the advantages the other fighter had and just made a case for one fighter on either side, I could absolutely convince you that that fighter was going to win decisively. There are just so many strengths to both fighters, and how each fighter combats those strengths to the other one is going to be absolutely paramount. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't know how it's going to play out. If you put a gun to my head and told me I had to have action on the fight, I would take Bronx Oliveira plus 180 inside the distance, just because that's the biggest value. It's a plus figure, and I'm not sure Poirier should be favored at the level he is. I think he should be a small favorite. 165 is a bit rich. I mean, I said it maybe 130. So I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this one. It's going to be one of the better fights of the year, even if it's a short.
TJ, great stuff as always on the UFC 269 card. A lot of plays from TJ. You don't want to miss any of them. If you missed anything from this video, you can get even greater thoughts from TJ, richer, deeper thoughts from TJ at ATS.io, written previews of every fight that we talked about here. Of course, until next time, TJ Calkins, Jay San, and saying see you later, and good luck on your UFC 269 action.